Currently, I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada. Between the years 1959 and 1979, there's been well over a dozen murders that have happened in Las Vegas that still remain unsolved to this day. Some of these murders happened 40, 50, and some even 60 years ago. However, all because a murder happened that long ago does not mean that the family of the victims deserve any less justice than a murder that occurred 5 years ago or even 2 months ago. So in this video today, I'm going to go to different locations of where these unsolved murders occurred. Please pay close attention. We're looking to hopefully one day crack some of these cases. Prior to 1960, Las Vegas Boulevard was known as 5th Street. And on February 4th, 1959, 45-year-old front desk clerk Evelyn Shanks was at work. The following morning on February 5th, her relief shift came in, noticed that Evelyn was missing from the front desk, as was all the money in the register. He looked over the receipts and noticed that she had rung up at about $174 in sales. Immediately, the police was called, and according to some eyewitnesses that were staying in this travel lodge at the time, they had noticed that there was a 1949 or 1950 dark blue Ford sedan parked outside with its lights on, but yet the engine was not running. They didn't get a very good look at the suspect other than he appeared to be a white male wearing a hat. So an APB was put out on Evelyn Shanks and this missing suspect. 3 days later, on Mountain Springs Road, Evelyn's body was found with a bullet to the back of her head. This is Papco Road here in Henderson, Nevada. You can see straight down the street right there, that is Boulder Highway, and you can see Joker's Wild Casino on the corner over there. On May 21st, 1975, 15-year-old Jerry Ann Ralston, who lived in this neighborhood, told her father that she was going to the gas station to buy a pack of cigarettes. That is the last time she was seen alive. The next day, May 22nd, she was found located in a retention pond somewhere in this area right here. She was wearing the same clothes that she had left her home in. Homicide detectives processed the scene, and it was discovered during autopsy that she had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. The actual murder location of where it took place was not here. Her body was dumped here. The murder location was never found, and her killer still remains at large. I'm walking down the 5500 block of East Birchman Avenue, and on September 20th, 1978, a neighbor of 38-year-old Sandra Owens and her 57-year-old mother, June Noah, walked to the front door just to say hello to them. And when she went to the door, nobody answered. However, their blinds were open. She peeked through the window and noticed that Sandra and June were laying face down in a pool of blood. She immediately called the police, and they arrived. Both victims were already deceased. They had been strangled, stabbed, and shot. This was a robbery because a large sum of money and valuables were missing from the house. This was a very, very brutal murder, and it was that house right there, the white house right in the middle of your screen with the pickup truck in the driveway, is where this murder occurred. We are walking down the 7300 block of Spencer, right off of Warm Springs Road. And on October 8th, 1976, 32-year-old Baccarat dealer Peter Joseph Bufala was found by his neighbor next to his car, laying down unresponsive. He called the police, and when they arrived, they quickly found that Peter was dead of a gunshot wound to his back. This is the house right in front of you, is where that murder took place. And according to Las Vegas Metropolitan detectives at the time, it was found that Peter probably would have got off of work around 3:30, 3:45. It would have took him about maybe 20 minutes to get home at that time. And the financial crimes section of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department did some more investigative work, and it was determined that Peter was a financial backer of a Las Vegas sporting goods store here, and it was going through bankruptcy. Pretty much during the investigation, the police did find a person that they believe was responsible for Peter's murder. However, they needed some more corroborative evidence to go ahead and put out that warrant for his arrest, but they were not able to do so, and this murder still remains unsolved to this day, even though they pretty much know who committed the murder. In the shadow of the Las Vegas Strip right now is this empty lot, which is 4715 Colville Lane. And on September 22nd, 1978, 29-year-old 21 poker dealer Irene Huber had gotten off work at the Sahara Hotel and Casino, and that was the last time anybody at her job seen her alive. 2 days later, she was set to come back to work, and she hadn't showed up for her shift. 3 shifts in a row she did not show up to. Her boss, being concerned, contacted Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department to conduct a welfare check. Metropolitan Police arrived here to apartment number 13, and after forcing their way inside, they found Irene Huber dead in her room of a gunshot wound. There looked like there had been a struggle that took place because everything was in disarray. Metropolitan Police Department looked at several instances of suspects and the possibility of even some kind of a gambling racket, but no information ever came their way. Currently, I'm off of Lake Mead Boulevard East. We're about 5 miles away from Mount Hood. This is a road that you would take if you want to take your family on any kind of outdoor excursions, whether you want to go to the Valley of Fire or you want to take your family out to the lake on the boat. This is a very popular place where kids and adults go hiking. Some people like to come out here and drink beer, look under the stars, go camping, smoke a little bit of weed. This is also a place where people leave their unwanted items. If you can see, there's some trash out here. People will come often to dump refrigerators that are broken, TVs, couches, beds, so forth and so on. And also, unfortunately, this is a place where people dump human bodies. This is a very popular location for that, unfortunately. There's a couple unsolved murders, a couple bodies that were found out here I want to talk about really quickly. The murder of Michael Jodie. He was discovered with a gunshot wound to the head on September the 3rd, 1977. He was last seen the previous week at the 101 Club where he was employed as a cook. That was the last time he was seen alive. And he got around town on a 1969 blue and white Honda 350cc motorcycle, which was discovered on 2426 Atlantic Avenue. Really no suspects to talk about in this case. And I don't know how that area was back then, but that is a heavily infested drug neighborhood as of the recording of this video. And the other murder is of 15-year-old Vicki Lynn Breck. She was last seen leaving her house at 3612 Braddock Street in North Las Vegas. She had called her friend to see if she was at home doing anything. She said, "No, come on over." And she never arrived, and her body was discovered the very next day on May 8th, 1978. Out here, she had been strangled. And just another unsolved murder here. No suspects. On May 3rd, 1973, 19-year-old Barbara Jean Kirk was in her apartment at 2750 East Bonanza. A neighbor was walking by her apartment and noticed smoke coming out of the window with flames. The neighbor immediately broke through the window, got into the apartment, and pulled Barbara out of the ensuing inferno. But by the time the paramedics and investigators arrived, she was already dead. She was taken to Clark County Coroner's office, and it was determined that she was strangled and sexually assaulted. Now, about an hour prior to the discovery of the fire, Barbara's husband, who was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, he had just left the apartment. He went to go to work. Now, I'm imagining that the homicide detectives immediately possibly suspected him of committing the murder, but he was cleared as a suspect. And whoever the suspect was, in a sense, more than likely targeting Barbara and waited for the husband to leave before he attacked. If you can see that apartment right there, that's 2850 East Bonanza, and this is 2740 East Bonanza. We're on the east side of Las Vegas. You can kind of see downtown in the background right there. I actually used to live in this neighborhood about a half a mile down this very road right here on 28th Street. So 2750 East Bonanza no longer exists. So it would have been right on this corner right here where the apartment used to be. Deodate E. Shiners, age 75, became the victim of a homicide at her home at 130 North 11th Street sometime between January 16th and January 21st of 1974. So her postal carrier had been concerned that she hadn't been collecting her mail like she normally does. And by the time he came on the 21st and she still hadn't collected her mail, postal carrier got worried and called the police. Police came inside the home and discovered Deodate inside dead. It would appear that it was a definite homicide and that it was an attempted burglary. It looked like the burglar attempted to gain access to the house from the back of it. Maybe the burglar knew that she lived alone by herself, and they came in there and they strangled her. On June 21st, 1971, 13-year-old Jodie Marie Miller opened up the window to her bedroom, crawled out, and disappeared into the night. The next morning, her family discovered their daughter was missing and they called the police. After conducting numerous interviews with Jodie's friends, one of her friends admitted that she had seen Jodie on the night of June 23rd, 1971. And unfortunately, that was the last time any of her friends or family seen her alive. Fast forward 6 months, November the 2nd, 1971. This being back then the outskirts of Las Vegas. This was all desert. Somebody walking through the desert right here discovered a shallow grave. And in that shallow grave was a body that was wrapped inside of a blanket. And in that blanket was 13-year-old Jodie Marie Miller. She had been murdered. Homicide detectives processed the scene, and through dental records, it was confirmed without a shadow of a doubt that that was 13-year-old Jodie Marie Miller. Now, as we drive up about 5 miles from that location on Lone Mountain Road, we're going to talk really quickly about the Susan Ray Perrin case. So on June 13th, 1971, 14-year-old Susan Ray Perrin told her family that she was going to Lorenzi Park to go swimming. Now, it is not known if she ever showed up to that park because she wasn't going there to meet with any friends. She was just going there to go swimming. It was very hot at that time, probably well over 100 degrees. It was not known, again, if she showed up. She disappeared. She was never seen or heard from again. And then on April 16th, 1973, almost 2 years later, skeletal remains were found about 5 miles up from the 95 freeway on this very road, Lone Mountain Road. And again, we're talking about almost 50 years ago. It looked very different here. There was no houses out here. It was just nothing but desert. Oftentimes people would come out here just to ride their dirt bikes and ride horses and just goof off. And some hikers found the skeletal remains, and they did a dental record check, and it unfortunately was Susan. They were able to determine that she died from some type of blunt force trauma to the head, being that the skull had some kind of divot or a fracture in it. I want to conclude the video by saying this. I have always been interested in unsolved murders, especially unsolved murders that happened before the 1980s. I don't know why. I don't know what fascinates me about those murders, where I would rather read something that happened in 1971 than to read something that happened in 2011 or 2015. But all unsolved murders are tragic in their own right. And I just want to bring light to these unsolved murders because, listen, if I don't talk about them, who's going to really talk about them? Yeah, you might get somebody who will be on Reddit and say like, oh yeah, this murder, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just a small cog in the wheel trying to bring light to these crimes. And even though a lot of these perpetrators are probably already dead, again, it doesn't mean that the family does not deserve justice and closure into the investigations on who committed these horrible and atrocious acts on these people. Anyways, guys, I'm Lamont at Large. Thank you for watching my video. I appreciate it very much from the bottom of my heart. Make sure you ring that bell. Make sure you subscribe. Get the notifications on. That way it'll let you know when I upload a video. I'll catch up with you on the next vlog. Have a good day. God bless. And be safe out there, everybody.